Hi everyone. I would like to introduce an author that I highly value, that's less known from the fourth way Gurdjieff-Ouspensky tradition. And I'm going to read from him. His name is Maurice Nicoll. He was a Scottish born in late 1800s and lived until about 1953. He was a student of Jung. He was the first British student of Jung. He was a psychiatrist in Britain, and then he became a very close student and devoted student of Peter Ouspensky. And also he, at Ouspensky's suggestion, he went to France to spend quite some time and study under Gurdjieff. Later, he returned back to England, studied with Ouspensky, and after some time, Ouspensky gave him permission and encouraged him to teach the fourth way in the tradition of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. I read his books. He has 5 books called Psychological Commentaries on the teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. I studied them in my 20s. And then I put them aside and continued with the work. Fourth way, Non-Duality, Somatic Psychotherapy, and all of that. And I recently came back to Maurice Nicoll's teaching, and I found it very rich, very concise, simple, direct, and very much connected with the work that I am teaching. I'm trying to continue to keep alive the fragments of the fourth way and to develop this as a pathway towards a harmonious development of man and awakening, healing. Yeah, so there will be several readings, and I think I'll create a playlist with readings from some of the fourth way teachers that are very relevant to the work I'm doing, work I'm putting online, as well as people in groups one-on-one. So from Maurice Nicoll. This was written in Birdlip, February 22, 1943. Internal considering and external considering. Amongst the many things that we have to observe in ourselves and work upon, according to this teaching that we are studying, there's the psychological state called internal considering. This refers to a process which takes a great deal of force from us. And like everything that takes energy from us uselessly, it keeps us asleep. Internal considering is a branch of identifying. As you know, the study of identifying in all its different branches is one of the most important forms of practical work on oneself. A man who identifies with everything is unable to remember himself. In order to remember oneself, it is necessary not to identify. But in order to learn not to identify, a man must first of all learn to not be identified with himself. One form of identifying is internal considering, of which there are several kinds, and some are forms of identifying with oneself. One of the most frequent forms of internal considering is thinking what others think of us, and how they treat us, and what attitude they show towards us. A man may feel he is not valued enough, and this torments him and makes him suspect others and causes him to lose an immense amount of energy, and may develop in him a distrustful and hostile attitude. Closely connected with this is that form of identifying called making accounts. A man begins to feel that people owe him, that he deserves better treatment, more rewards, more recognition, And he writes all this down in a psychological account book, the pages of which he is continually turning over in his mind. And such a man begins to pity himself so much that it may be almost impossible to talk to him about anything without making him at once refer to all his sufferings. All accounts of this kind, all feelings that you are owed by other people and that you owe nothing yourself, are of very great psychological consequence to the inner development of man. A man in the work can only grow through the forgiveness of others. That is, unless you cancel your debts, nothing in you can grow. It is said in the Lord's Prayer, "Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors." Feeling you are owed, feeling debts, stops everything. You hold back yourself and you hold back the other person. This is the inner meaning of Christ's remark that one should make peace with one's enemy. He says, "Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art with him in the way, lest haply the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt not come out until thou hast paid the last farthing." Matthew 25:26. Matthew 5:25-26. If you are going to exact psychologically every pound of flesh or every farthing from a man who owes you, that is, if you are going to make everyone apologize and make amends and eat the dust, then you will be under the exacting law that Christ warns you to escape from. You will put yourself in prison, that is, under unnecessary laws, and you will not get out until you have paid on your side for all your own faults. But there is a law of mercy, that is, an influence higher than the literal law of an eye for an eye, which is the law of the man of violence. This is an example of putting yourself under new influences. If you want to put yourself under better influences coming down the ray of creation, you must behave differently. Take everything differently. That is, work. You must put yourself first under the influences of the work and try to obey them. That means you must hear and do the work. In the work, negative emotions, internal considering, making accounts, feeling violent, jealous, etc. are not encouraged. Now, if you make inner accounts, then you feel always that someone owes you. Try to think what this means, and then try to observe what it means in yourself. And then, finally, try to do what the work says. Separate. And do not imagine it is quite easy. The work means work, hard work, on yourself. Remember that this work is for those who really wish to work and change themselves. It is not for those who wish to change the world. We now come to a fuller description of one form of internal considering, but you must understand that you must observe this form in yourself. No one can work on himself without observing that this work tells him to observe in himself and seeing what it is he has to work on. You must be able to perceive your inner state at any particular time as distinct from your outer physical body and what it is doing. Once people can distinguish between their physical appearance and their inner states, they can begin to work. They see that they have a body which obeys orders and a psychology. The work is about what a person is psychologically. Let us speak today of that aspect of a person called in the work singing your song. Singing your song. This is psychological, not physical singing. It is based on internal considering, making accounts, that is, feeling what you are owed and recording it in memory. Everyone has a song to sing in this respect. If you really want to know what kinds of inner accounts you have made throughout your life, begin to notice the typical songs you sing. When a person in the work is called a good singer, this refers to the song he or she sings. Sometimes people sing their songs without any encouragement, and sometimes, after a few glasses of wine, they begin to sing openly. They sing about how badly they have been treated, about how they never had the real chance, about their past glories, about how no one understood their difficulties, about how they married wrongly, about how nice they really are, about how they have been unappreciated, misunderstood, and so on. And all this means how everybody is to blame except themselves. All this is making inner accounts, or rather, it is the result of making accounts. This is one form of internal considering. Now, why do you think it is necessary in the work to get rid as far as possible of such songs? Why it is necessary to notice them, to starve them, to push them away out of a central position in one's life, until they are sung only in rare occasions, in faint voice, and perhaps finally never? Why? They cripple you inside. They take energy. You smile bravely. You all know that brave smile, and it is all lies. A good singer in the work cannot get beyond himself. He is a victim of his own account making. As soon as anything is difficult, he begins singing. This stops him. He cannot grow. He perhaps begins to weep. He cannot change his level of being. He cannot get beyond what he is, crippled by sad songs. It is a sign of being. Being is what you are. And to change being, one must not be what one is. Instead of working on himself in some difficult situation, he begins to sing at once, perhaps very nicely and quietly. If he is criticized or spoken too sharply, he begins to pity himself, or gets furious and feels he is not understood, and so on. And then he begins to sing, either softly to himself or to others, especially to people who will listen to him, or it may be to her. Often, a person makes friends with another person only because it is easy to sing his or her sad song to him or her. And if the latter suddenly tells him in so many words to shut up, he or she is so deeply offended that he goes in search of a new friend, a person who will really understand him or her, as the expression goes, as if anyone could understand another person just like that. If only, they say. To understand another, one must first understand oneself, and this only begins after long work on oneself and catching glimpses of what one is really like. A good singer certainly does not understand himself. He prefers to sing the song that he's misunderstood, and so he dreams of a marvelous world in which everything is arranged so that he is the central figure in it. And this attitude and these dreams create a weakness, and in fact a real psychological sickness for which a man may have to pay all through life. He has, as it were, let life overcome him. But you must realize that this does not merely apply to people who make no effort, to people who are not adjusted. It applies also to people who do make ordinary efforts and who yet are sick in this sense, because they feel life owes them things that they have never attained. They feel they should be happier, and very often think that other people seem to be happier, and other people think the same thing of them. And although they do not sing their songs openly, perhaps songs go on in them secretly. They feel an inner sadness, a sense of monotony, a kind of inner tiredness or frustration around which thoughts gather. It is about these inner secret songs that I wish to speak tonight, for they also stand in one's way, and very often they are not observed, although they are all the time secretly eating one's life. Only deeper self-observation will reveal them. All self-observation is to let light in to oneself. Nothing can change in us unless it is brought into the light of self-observation, that is, into the light of consciousness. And all self-observation is to make us more conscious of what is going on in us. You know, you must observe yourself when you are alone, just as much as you are with people. Self-observation is inner attention. Do not think that when you are alone, there is no need for inner attention. When you are alone, quite different eyes, different forms of imagination, different thoughts, different moods come forward. You must not think that you are necessarily in good company when you are alone. You may easily be in the worst company, and yet not even think of observing where you are in yourself and what company you are keeping in yourself. Your most negative and most dangerous eyes may come forward when you are alone. You may have quite well-written songs that only come when you are quite alone, when you feel no one is looking. But you must look. You must never feel no one is looking, simply because the door is shut. You must never feel that you can indulge yourself in your worst negative eyes just because you are alone, and that therefore you can behave as you like in yourself. You must cultivate quite a new idea of responsibility to yourself in this respect. To think that you can go to sleep in yourself just because there is no one there, and that you can enjoy all your inner negative talking, for that reason is to have no proper conception of what this work means. It means that you have no inner sincerity. And this work demands inner sincerity as the first thing that is essential. In life, we keep up outer appearances, but in the work, the case is quite different. It is about what goes on in you, inside yourself, in your thoughts and feelings. By inner work on ourselves, when we are alone, we can often change a whole outer situation. But we cannot do that without inner sincerity, and observing which eyes in us are lying or twisting things and so on. We may make a name not to be negative with some person, but if we are alone and let our negative eyes say what they please and make no effort not to identify with them, then we are not working sincerely. And we cannot undo a week of work in a few moments. If we do not go with negative eyes in public, but indulge them in private, what do we think we are doing? We certainly have not begun to understand what work means. We must handle a person we are working with us. We must handle a person we are working with as carefully and as consciously in our own inner thoughts and feelings as we do externally from polite manners. If we cannot see what this means, then we do not see what self-observation means. On one occasion, I was sitting with Mr. Uspensky. We had been silent. He looked up at me with a smile and asked me why I was so sad. I said I did not know that I was. He said, "It is a habit. You are listening to some eyes that are singing some sad, faraway song, perhaps a song without words, or words you have forgotten. Try to observe it. It takes force from you, and is quite useless." And then he added, "This is an example of the moon eating you." I give this as an example of what I call in this commentary inner secret songs. We know that the work sometimes speaks of sacrifice, that we must sacrifice something in order to get anything. What does the work say that we must sacrifice first of all? It says we must sacrifice our suffering. We express our suffering often in songs, articulate and inarticulate. I am calling attention here to these inarticulate songs that we should try to observe and which can make us easily lose force without our knowing what is happening. They are, as it were, strange little sad private relationships we have with ourselves that steal force from us, that we do not notice because they are habits. More to come.